So welcome everybody. I think we had one new person join, Robbie. Let's see. We're wanted to remind everybody that for 2021, the membership dues are, your membership is up for renewal. The dues are $30 for individuals, $45 for families, and $20 for students. And we're a nonprofit completely run by volunteers. So this money is used to help us do our art shows and pay for the website and all the other work that we do, all the volunteers do. And so we hope everybody renews their membership again this year. You don't have to be a member to attend the meetings, but that does help to support us. Also, we're always in need of more volunteers. So we're right now looking for a board secretary and public relations person to help with promoting our events and other activities. And then we've got 3 great committees that are ongoing: exhibition committee, marketing committee, and education committee. And if you'd like to join any of these, please let us know. And then we're also looking for somebody to help with fundraising. And for more information, just send an email to info@boulderartassociation.org. Also wanted to let everybody know, I know some of you have come to the Saturday critiques, but every Saturday morning from 11 to 12:15, we do a virtual art critique, and we have a great group of people that come to these every week. I know Sherry, I see you're in the meeting, welcome, and she comes to our critiques. And Twyla is usually there, and a couple other people, but they're really great, very positive. Oh, and Jill, of course. And very positive, inspiring kind of critiques, and really helpful if you have a question about the piece you're working on or have any questions and just want feedback, or just want to show your latest piece and let everybody else see it. And then also an announcement, we just started a new venue in North Boulder as part of the North Boulder Art District. We're going to have exhibition space as in the gallery that they have there 2 months out of the year. It's going to be July and December of 2021. So we're really excited about that. So watch for our shows coming. This is a really great art gallery with garage doors that open out to Broadway, and so there can be live performances and a lot of different activities. So really excited about that new announcement. And then also just a reminder, we've got our BAA show in and around Boulder going on through February 1st at the Museum of Boulder. And Justin is the head of our exhibition committee. He's on the meeting today. He and his team did a great job with putting on this show. It includes 2 parts: the 8x8 pictures of sheep, which are a play on our logo from early in the when the organization had just begun. They used to use a sheep as part of the logo. And then there's also another part to the show of different art showing in and around Boulder. So and then we also have an announcement that we're going to move select pieces from the show over to our member wall that we have at Art Gallery, which is downtown near Pearl and Broadway. And so the sheep from the show will be moving over, plus the award winners from that show. And then throughout the first part of the year, there's going to be art shows by several different Boulder Art Association members that you can see down at that gallery. It's a great gallery if you haven't visited. So and they're very careful about social distancing and not letting too many people in. So it's a great place to see. Also, we have another venue where we show member art. It's at Cafe Ion on the Hill, and there's a show going on there through January 13th. I guess it's through tomorrow, but lots of great art always on display at that venue. And then a quick announcement, our February meeting is going to be on Tuesday, February 10th, and it's watercolor artist Randy Hale. He's going to be doing a live demonstration. And we had Randy in one of our meetings several years ago. He's an incredible artist, and he finished a watercolor painting in the meeting. So I don't know exactly what he's going to be doing in this demo, but he's really great if you just want to watch someone work, and he's very good at showing how he works and his technique and everything. So I think it'd be a really good meeting. And you can also go work along if you'd like. And then I think we wanted to go directly into our main speaker today rather than having introductions and announcements. But Dr. Eva Fisher is our speaker this month. And Eva, I'll let you decide if you want to do introductions or however you want to manage the meeting. So at this point, I'm going to hand it over to you. Dr. Eva was a gallery manager for many, many years. I can't remember how long that was, Eve, but so she's worked with 8 years. So she's worked with artists for a long time. She's also an artist and she lives in the Boulder area. So we're really, really happy to have you here this month, Eve. So I'll just go ahead and turn it over to you. Unless anybody has any questions or anything, but I think we can go ahead and turn it over to Eva.
So I'm fine doing some quick introductions if everyone wants to just go around and just quickly, basically just your medium that you work in. And then if you brought in current artist statement or if you're kind of starting from scratch tonight. So whoever wants to go first, or if Ed, you just want to kind of call people or however you want to do it.
I'll just go around based on what's on my screen. So I'll start with Jill. We love your red hat, Jill.
Yes,
Yeah.
Thank you. I just, I'm in one of those moods this week. Yeah, I currently have an artist statement. I work in many mediums. I'm a photographer, graphic designer, oils, pastel, watercolor. I can't make up my mind. So I have different artist statements depending upon what I'm displaying at the time. So.
Great. And how about Barbara?
Hi, I had to turn my sound on. So I have an existing artist statement, which I don't know if someone can help me. I had it loaded on my Facebook fan page, and the whole about page seems to have disappeared on Facebook. So Facebook must have made some changes. So I'm unprepared. I actually paid someone to write the artist statement for me. So in the past 15 years, I've worked mostly in wall reliefs made of bronze and also mixed media paintings. And prior to that, I worked as a commercial fashion designer. And the majority of my sketches, working sketches, illustrations were watercolor and airbrushing a little pencil, ink, whatever was near me. So I like working with whatever's in front of me, basically. I don't care what medium.
Next up, we have Mariana. Is that right? Did I pronounce your name correctly?
Yeah. I worked in many mediums, different. I did sculpture, I did painting, I did graphic designing, I did jewelry. Right now I'm working with mobiles. That's what I like to do right now. I have an existing artist statement, which I don't quite like. So I'm hopeful that I'll get a better one today.
Great.
Justin, you're next.
Mm-hmm. Well, my background is graphic design, but I'm enjoying my current transition over to sculpture, and I do public art sculpture, large sculpture, as well as little tabletop things. So I have a number of statements, but I just don't really maybe understand, the difference between an artist statement and what you'd say on a resume and so forth. So I have statements, but I don't really know if I'm doing them right, or whether they're statements, or I don't know what they are, but they're just
Bios.
bios, whatever. But yeah, I'm not really sure what I have.
Great.
Great. How about Debra next? Debra Perry. Debra, you're on mute.
I'm currently working with Photoshop and photography, and I've worked previously in like sculpture, made hats, did jewelry, and so I'm kind of all over the place in interest. But again, to repeat what other people have said, it's kind of like just want to get clarification on what should be on the artist statement.
Great. Thanks.
Thank you.
And Twyla next.
Hi, I'm an abstract acrylic artist. I'm very much an amateur. I don't have an artist statement, so this will be my first time learning about them.
Great.
Cool.
And how about Sarah next?
I'm a watercolor painter, and I have a draft of an artist statement, but like everyone else, I'm looking for more direction and how I can improve it.
Great. Thanks.
And Jean, is that right?
Yeah, hi. I've worked in a lot of different mediums. I've done a lot of printmaking and watercolor, and now I mostly work in oil. And I shifted into doing a lot of still lives, which I never really thought I would do, but I'm enjoying it very much. I have written a bunch of artist statements and kind of have tailored them to the moment or the show that I was in, to say that I really know well what all the content should be of an artist statement and so on would certainly, you know, not be the case. So I'd love to learn some more and maybe just finalize one or two artist statements, you know, a shorter one, a longer one, or whatever. You know, so I'm very interested in this.
Great. Thank you.
Next up, Sherry. Sherry, you're on mute.
Right now? Can
Yeah.
you hear? Okay. Yeah, I didn't have any art statement. I do some sculpture and also oil painting, and the learning is still in the learning stage. So I would like to learn today how to make a statement. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Gail next.
I am mixed media, mostly high flow acrylics and regular acrylics and activated charcoal. I do have a bio. I had to put one together for Annie the first time I was in the show up in Netherlands, and then I've revised it many times since then, and also at our gallery. But I think mine might be more a bio compared. I'm kind of using one similar to what I used when I worked, so I think it's a bio and not really a statement.
Great. Thanks. Joy next.
I work in a mixed media, assemblage kind of stuff. There's a lot, I don't know, there's quite a bit of it on the wall behind me. I've been struggling with writing artist statements. I had, you know, read some articles about it, but I feel pretty lost. But like, am I saying things about myself? Am I saying things about the art? Am I trying to say things to move people? You know, like, how much am I explaining? How much am I leaving up to people's imagination? Yeah, lots of questions.
Great. And Hannah.
So I can honestly say I've been winging it, and any guidance and kind of, I don't know, rules or guidance really is appreciated. So winging it would be the best. And also, like many of the folks here, I work in various mediums.
Great, thanks.
How about Annie next?
I worked in oils and acrylic, but I'm in love with watercolors, so that's what I mostly do. And I've started teaching some in my studio. I finally have a dedicated studio, which is great. I have a artist statement that I've used for a long time. I'm really looking forward to updating it and maybe adding something that's more valuable. I don't know. Anyway, I'm looking forward to this.
Great, thank you.
Next up, I have BJ.
Hello, I primarily do oil pastel, and I'm also mostly a musician. So I'm a newbie to the idea of having an artist statement. So I'm here to learn.
Great.
And how about Mona next? So Mona may have stepped away. How about Marcy?
And Marcy needs to unmute.
And,
yes, I'm a fiber artist and I keep getting your emails. I'm not a member, but I've always wanted to have a real artist statement. So I'm here to learn and any help I can get. Thank you.
Great, thanks.
And then next up is Robbie. Oh, looks like we may have lost Robbie. Oh.
Hey, am I in? No?
Oh yeah, there you are.
Oh, I'm good. Hi, I'm a designer and a writer from New Orleans. Interested in learning more about the organization. So that's part of why I'm here. My wife is an artist and has been a member for a while with Ava Mayer. So mostly interested in getting to know what you guys are up to. Thanks for having me.
Sure. Welcome. Okay, I think that's it, Eve.
Perfect. Well, thank you all. And I put a link to a page on my website for tonight in the chat. So you can just open up your chat. If you don't know how to do that, if you go down to the bottom of your screen, you'll see more on the far right, right before the leave button. So don't hit the leave button. But if you click on those three dots where it says more and you go up to the top, you'll see the link for the chat. If you click on that, then you should see the link to the Fear to Courage website, and then it says BAA Artist Statement Workshop, and you can click on that. And I'll also share my screen, but you can follow along if you want to as well and kind of check out some of those resources during the workshop. So let me go and I will share my screen now so you can see what I'm seeing.
Oh.
So is everyone seeing kind of my screen now, Ed?
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Perfect. So this will be an interactive workshop. That's why I ask if some people had, and again, if you have an artist statement, that's great. You can copy and paste it into a new document, parts of it. You can open up a Word document on your laptop or computers tonight or whatever, or Google Docs, whatever you want to work in is fine with me, whatever's easiest for you. But I do want this to be interactive, so at least you'll leave tonight with the beginning of an artist statement. For some of you, it may be a completed artist statement. What I wanted to bring up before I jump into these links here tonight is, as Ed mentioned, I managed an art gallery in Boston for 8 years. That was the Society of Arts and Crafts, it's the oldest nonprofit arts and crafts society in the country. And I managed the downtown location. They did have a location on Newbury Street. Unfortunately, they don't anymore. Long story, I won't get into it now. But I managed the one downtown in the financial district. Those of you who are familiar with Boston. And what was really interesting in curating shows is I had a lot of artists tell me when I asked them for an artist statement, they didn't have one. And some of you can relate to that, I'm sure. So what I wanted to help them do is I said, really, from from what I know and the questions I get asked from, buyers and people who come in, is they really want to know the artist's inspiration, intent, and technique. Now, I will say that your artist statement, as some of you have pointed out, you might have more than one artist statement. So focus tonight on just one of the mediums. So perhaps the medium you're working in right now, or if you have a show coming up, maybe that medium or that body of work, just because it is, I think, important to have different artist statements, maybe for different mediums and for different shows. You can certainly tailor them. The other thing I want to impress upon everyone is your artist statement is very individual to you and your art. So I will talk a little bit about writing skills, because certainly you want your artist statement to be clear and easy to understand, but it really is very individual, because it's a real insight into you as a person. And that's really what the person who's looking at your artwork wants to have, is just a brief insight into you as a person, as a person who's creating this artwork, whatever the artwork is, whatever the medium is. What was interesting is one show, and I mentioned this to Ed, and I would get the standard, and again, today I'm asking you to come up with 1 or 2 sentences for each of those sections. Now, if you feel that there's a lot more to talk about, you can certainly, add to that after tonight. If you don't want to fill out all of those sections, try to at least come up with 1 sentence for each section tonight, because I think that will help you and everyone in your workshop, so we can all kind of work together on them. But, I had an artist, I was putting together a show of boxes, just intricate boxes. And I had one Japanese artist, and I asked him to, write his inspiration, intent, and technique, so I could put it on the wall next to his box. And he gave me 1 sentence. But again, it was a very Zen, Zen creation. And that's what he felt really epitomized his work, was a very simple 1-sentence artist statement. So it's really interesting, because it gives the person who's looking at your artwork a real insight into you as a person, but also how, what goes into creating that artwork as well, and what you want people to know about you and your art. So just keep that in mind. There's no right or wrong. It's a very individualized sort of thing. Okay, so hopefully that reassures people. So the first thing I want to just show you is there's some sample artist statements, and I pulled these from the web mostly because I thought they epitomize, they had either inspiration, intent, and technique, all 3 of those things, not necessarily called out the way mine does, because I wanted to make it kind of more straightforward for everyone. But there's also different mediums, because I know there's a lot of different mediums that artists are working in tonight. So the Art Student League, this is kind of an article, and it's basically 8 artist statements we love. And they tell you why they love them. And, I love this Calvin and Hobbes, as my artist statement explains, my work is utterly incomprehensible and is therefore full of deep significance. You don't want your artist statement to be utterly incomprehensible. You want it to be clearly written. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you, but your screen is not moving, so I didn't know if you were showing these things or not.
Yeah, it's not sharing.
I can see your screen, but it's
let me
not.
try a different way of sharing. I'm going to share a different way. So.
I could see your screen, but it just wasn't scrolling.
Huh. Now you're seeing my entire screen. Can you see it scrolling now?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Now we can.
And again, everyone who has a link, you can just follow along. But again, I'm not going to go into all of these, but you can refer back to them tonight. And of course, you can refer back to them after tonight too. But, this is like, an example from a sculptor, from a silkscreen artist, a jeweler, ceramicist, a painter, glass artist. I don't know how to pronounce that, I have to admit, and a photographer. And what's nice is if you look at them, they have some part of either an inspiration, intent, or technique in the artist statement. So again, it doesn't have to be long. The other 2 here are a bit longer. I say it doesn't have to be long, but this is a sculptor's artist statement. And as you can see, kind of on this side, which is the left side, you know, it says, as an artist, I try to capture, interpret, and represent beauty as I see it. So this is kind of her, you know, intent in her, in the work. And then if you notice on the other side, it kind of talks about, you know, basically her, sorry, I believe this is a she, but it talks about the technique, basically. As you can see halfway down, it says working in bronze is an additive process. So really talking about the technique and what's involved. And that one's a bit longer, obviously. And then this is Lydia Makepeace. And again, an example artist statement. It says it's a general artist statement. But you know, color makes me dance and painting is my passion, the oxygen to my creative lungs. Obviously, that's fairly creative in terms of use of a language. And then, you know, I may begin a painting with an idea of the colors and composition I'd like to achieve. So again, talking about technique, inspiration, stuff like that. So generally, when you look at artist statements, you'll generally see either one or all of those elements in it. And again, I'll go over writing tips in just a minute. But I know some of you, that's why I wanted people to kind of talk about your existing artist statements and maybe some of the questions you have for tonight, because a bio is different. And it's good to have a bio. You could either have a bio separate from your artist statement, or you could have it at the bottom of your artist statement. You'll see that my biography is down here. You'll also notice that it changes from first person to third person. You don't have to, but definitely your artist statement should be in first person, because again, it's a very personal thing. People want to get an insight into you. So it's really nice to write from the first person, meaning using I and me and my, things like that. So again, you know, this is always in flux, and it's in flux so much that the one that the artist statement up here is a little different from the one I tweaked, because I wanted to tweak it a little, because I thought, you know, that could be a little better. So again, you can always tweak it. What's nice having it on a website is you can tweak it. You know, once it goes onto a gallery wall, it needs to kind of stay that way, unless you ask the gallery manager to, you know, to put up a new one. But generally, it's good to have one that stays the same for that show. So again, you can see inspiration here. I have them broken out so you can kind of get a sense of what, you know, what can belong in each category. I don't want to say should, because again, it's a very individual thing. But, you know, playing with colors is, I'm not going to read this whole thing, but you can kind of see the inspiration would start with, you know, playing with color is essential to my art. You know, my oil paintings are inspired by the roses and wildflowers that spring forth in my garden every spring and summer. So you can use the term inspiration here to kind of reiterate that that's what you're talking about, right? And then I talk more, you know, I come from an artistic family. Both my parents were artists. I talk about where they graduated from. And then my desire to learn oil painting came from my mother's beautiful still life and portrait paintings that decorated the walls of my childhood home. So again, it gives someone an insight into, and this was for a show where I had some florals, as you'll see, as it probably becomes obvious, some floral paintings. So it was focusing on the floral paintings, my oil paintings. Then intent is a little different. Intent, you know, my goal is to have fun discovering the many color nuances that exist in nature, capturing the quality of light as it illuminates the world around me, and creating images that appear both spontaneous and timeless. So again, you'll see when I break this out, when we look at the slides, the first thing is kind of like, what do you want to do with your art? The second is why, you know, why are you motivated to create this artwork? And last but not least, of course, is technique. And this is where you can feel like you can talk about, what makes the medium meaningful for you? Because I heard, you know, a couple of you say, oh, I fell in love with watercolor. I love, you know, oil pastel or something like that, or sculpture is really what turns me on. Great, you know, let the person viewing your artwork know that. They want to know that you're passionate about what you do, right? So again, but they also, this is also an opportunity to educate. because not everyone will understand, like you do, what oil painting involves or what watercolor involves, or some of the pros and cons of working in a certain medium. So or why it's challenging, because again, we'll talk more about this in the workshop, but again, this is you're promoting your artwork using your artist statement. So you want someone to appreciate not only that you're passionate about it, but that it may not be an easy medium to work in, right? It's challenging. So oil painting is an addictive that should be additive process. Yeah, additive, sorry. It is addictive, but additive is what I wanted. But again, layers of color are built upon one another. And I talk about, I learned how to paint like the Impressionists by taking classes from Colorado artist Chuck Sarasso. A lot of you may know who he is. He lives in Lafayette. Paintings with oils on canvas using a palette knife provides rich impasto paint coverage, versatility, and an easy way to clean up using paper towels rather than turpentine, which was a selling point for me, I have to admit. I look forward to painting many more roses and colorful flowers for my garden in the coming years. So again, it's just kind of a wrap up that isn't necessarily technique, but it's nice to wrap up your artist statement with kind of a closing thought. And then the bibliography, you can see the biography is more in third person, and it's more, my background, my education, where I worked, and my own experience teaching students, in this case communication, because I'm primarily taught communication, and that's what my PhD is in. But again, that's more of kind of, as some of you mentioned, that's more what you might advertise if you were looking for a job, right? Which is great. And it's nice, if people care about your background, your education, that you have an MA or an MFA and all that stuff. But that's probably not going to be as important for someone, especially for living artists, as is the artist statement. Now, again, for dead artists, and I worked in some of those galleries too, certainly the people are looking for for an investment that will appreciate and value. So clearly knowing, who studied with whom, and how much that piece sold for in the past, and what that artist's history is, and education, and who they studied with that was famous, is certainly important for your work, but it's probably not as important because you're all living artists, right? Most times people are going to collect your art for pleasure. They may also be thinking, hey, it might accumulate, it might appreciate in value, but that's going to be probably less of a driving factor when purchasing artwork from living artists. So before I kind of go over the slides and we start our workshop tonight, does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, Eve, I have a question. So what about listing artists that inspired you? Like for me, there's a couple of egg temper artists that I'm really inspired by. Oh, I see you kind of got that in here, right? Under Monet, Constable, and so on. Okay.
Yeah, you can definitely put that in. It also depends on the level of education that you think the people kind of looking at your art are going to have. Monet, Constable, and Corot are fairly famous landscape artists and obviously impressionists. But if you feel like somebody might not have that background, you might want to just give a little bit, like do a separate paragraph and then talk about kind of, what they specialize in or why they inspired you, just because somebody may not know exactly, their background or what their artwork looks like. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thanks.
So again, great question. It's all about, when you're writing, and now I'll just talk about writing tips just for a brief second, and you can click on this. This is just, when you're writing, obviously you want to keep your audience in mind. And that's true when you're writing, a resume, a cover letter, or an artist statement. So again, think about the people who will, the patrons of this gallery, or wherever you're going to show your art. Online, it's a little more difficult because you may get a wide variety of people coming to your website. But generally, if you're targeting a certain demographic with marketing materials or something, think about their knowledge. And do you have to explain terms, or can you kind of stick your term in? If you notice, I use the term impasto, but I put it in with, you know, other things that kind of were descriptors. If I really felt like somebody didn't know what impasto meant, I can talk about how you can build up oil painting and create a lot of texture and all that such. If I really felt like, you know, I really wanted to point that out about my artwork, that is very textural. So again, it's all about what do you want to say about your artwork, and then what, you know, what do you think your audience wants to know about you and your artwork. So this is kind of that interplay. Just a few kind of tips here on clear writing. But, you know, again, use active voice, subject, verb, object whenever possible. Don't use passive voice. And, you know, if I see it in your statements, you know, we'll talk about that. Use concrete rather than abstract words. So as much as possible, use, you know, really descriptive words, colors, feelings. Don't just do a vague term like, you know, oil painting is pretty vague. You can certainly start with oil painting because that's a pretty general category, but, you know, how exactly do you create your oil paintings? Be more specific. Use short words, short sentences, and short paragraphs. Like I said, tonight we'll focus on just 1 to 2 sentences per section. You can certainly expand that. I wouldn't suggest going on to 2 pages in an artist statement because no one really wants to take the time to read that when they're standing looking at your artwork. Avoid wordy sentences. Again, that comes back to keeping it short and sweet. Use appropriate language. I just kind of mentioned that. Use verbs rather than nouns. Verbs are dynamic and action oriented. So again, that's especially true when you're talking about technique, when you're talking about, you know, how you create your artwork. Okay.
And I was going to
Go
say,
ahead. Yeah.
folks can unmute themselves if they have any questions, or if you don't want to speak, I guess you could type them in the chat also.
Yeah. Yeah, by all means. Okay. So again, you can just follow along with this, or you can watch. I'm going to see if I can. Okay, so what I want to do, and Ed's going to help me with this, is we're going to have 4 different breakout sessions during this. And again, they'll be approximately 15 to 20 minutes each. Some may be shorter, some may be longer. Ed and I will be kind of checking in on the different breakout rooms, just making sure that everything's going okay. The other thing too is I think we'll have, how many people do we have other than us, Ed?
So we're at 17 now.
That includes us though.
Yeah, so 15.
So perfect. So we could have 5 breakout rooms of 3 people apiece. So perfect. So what I want you to do is, again, you can, if you want to share your screen with one another and show us what show one another what you're working on your Word doc, on your laptop, that's great. But again, they'll only be a few sentences long at the longest. So you can also just kind of share with one another by reading off your statements, however you want to do it. There's no right or wrong way tonight. The other thing is, I will mention you'll stay with the same 3 people throughout tonight's session. So you'll kind of get to know one another and help one another out. We won't be kind of mixed. So you can either type into this one or not, but basically once you get put into a group, you'll know what your group's number is. It'll say group 1, group 2, group 3, group 4, group 5. So basically what you can do is you can either assign someone or you can all type into this doc yourself. But what you can do is basically, if you notice, the first section is what is the inspiration for your artwork. The second, and then again, we'll work on that for about 15 to 20 minutes. You'll type into here. You can put you can put your own artist statement. And again, if you already have something in your artist statement that you feel like, hey, it fits in here and I like it, go ahead and use it. You know, you don't have to reinvent the wheel tonight. And then the second, what we'll do, we'll come back, just make sure Ed and I'll check everyone's done that and has something out there. Then step 2 is why do you create your artwork? That'll be your intent. And then needless to say, the third one will be how do you create your artwork, which is the technique part. And then last but not least will be reflection and feedback. where you'll review the statements from other people in your group, give each other some feedback. And again, you can do this while you're doing it, but it's easier probably if you work kind of on your own or copy and paste yours just to get something out there before you kind of get a lot of feedback from one another. But if you have questions, feel free to ask me. I'll be jumping into different groups, or Ed, or you can certainly, you know, rely on one another. And then you'll also kind of think about how you could use your artist statement. Now, a lot of you, it sounds like you already know how you're going to use your artist statement or how you want to do that. But for some of you, maybe you can think about some creative ways you could use your artist statement. So again, that's kind of what we'll be doing tonight. Does anyone have any questions before Ed starts putting people into breakout rooms? And again, you can unmute yourself, you can type in the chat, whichever you prefer.
So we're all writing onto this one document, is that correct?
Right, so under your group, you'll see the instructions here. You can choose a text color. I just kind of started these. You can certainly choose a different text color. And again, that's totally optional. I know there's artists here and my students like to choose their own text colors, but you know, you can, you don't have to. But again, type your group's name in the Google Doc and then discuss with your group members what inspires you to create your artwork. And you can use information from your current artist statement. Then below your group's name, have each member type his or her name and provide a brief 1 to 2 sentences artist inspiration statement.
And Eve, I think we're going to do 4 rooms of 3 people.
Okay.
Does that sound right? 3 per room?
I mean, if the co-host, you know, some of you, if you want to put all 3 of you in a room of co-hosts and work on yours together.
Oh, but yeah, and I put the co-hosts in there, except for you and I.
Okay.
I think we're good.
Sure. I mean, however many. I think 3 is a good number, though.
Okay, good. I'm going to go ahead and start this, and we'll check in with you. So, and when you get broken out into a group, it'll ask you, do you want to enter the room? And I think you have to click something. So just make sure you do that, and then you can introduce yourselves and get started. So here we go.
Do we want to like critique each other's, or do we want to just leave it? Because we can just leave it.
No, that would be good to hear what you have to say. I would like.
Sure. Jill, you say the inspiration for my artwork comes from what I see in the world. As a photographer, I capture these moments. I'm sorry. Here's what I turn to in paint. So you capture, if you want to capture a moment before it gets away from you, then you turn that into a painting.
Mm-hmm.
I think I would do the same. You know,
I like that. I'm going to put that in. I'm just going to steal that from you. Before.
It gets away from. Now that way, you're not stressed about trying to paint or draw something that's always, you know, that's in motion.
Yeah, well, and you know, light changes so quickly. I've been trying to learn how to paint plein air. I chase the light, which is a bad thing to do in a painting because you just never, you keep changing things because the light moves so quickly. Like within an hour, the whole scene looks different. So yeah, you have to be much faster. Anyway, cool. Yeah, thank you. I like that. All right. Mariana. I get inspired by nature, colors, textures, shapes, and different materials. Always listening to each of them. Oh, what each
of them? I think it's not. I think I'm missing a word.
What each of them has to say. I've been collecting treasures throughout my whole life. These include anything from pebbles and driftwood I find on a hike. Let's see, anything from pebbles, driftwood. You know what I would do is I would take this I find on a hike. I would say I've been collecting treasures throughout my whole life. These include anything from pebbles and driftwood to semi-precious stones and antique that that I find on a hike, comma, and have been with me for decades.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
And I
Nice.
think driftwood is
Thank
one
you.
word. Yeah. Cool. How much fun
Thank
is
you.
that?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can you send me that so that I use it as is?
Yep.
Because
Mariana, these then become the items for the mobiles?
Yeah.
Mm.
Then I put them together, and yeah.
I love them.
Thank you. Thank you.
They're very unique to you, because most people, yeah, you know, most mobiles are like little pieces of paper and sticks that hold other little rings and things. I find
Yeah.
yours to be very expressive.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I realize that these things, you know, have their own. It's like a life of their own. I don't know. You start putting them together, and they start to move in a certain way. Um, so I started with little things, and then I'm getting, you know, more and more excited.
Yeah,
They grow now.
I'm always picking up shells and rocks, and like I've got something here on my desk. I don't even know where I got this from. It's like a little.
Yeah, nice. Yeah.
It's all
Yeah, those are
smooth
things
and.
that you cherish, you know.
Yeah,
And
I've got things from like the beach where I grew up. I even brought sand home in a bag, and I open it up. I'm like, oh, it smells like beach.
I totally understand what you say.
Do these mobiles of yours, what do they evoke memories yeah, like memories from your childhood or stories or something to you?
Yeah, it's I have let's say old necklaces from my grandmother, you know, that I kept when I was a child. And I'm using one bead. Maybe I still have like 40 beads on, you know, from that same necklace. And because I have such a good memory, I can even tell you where, you know, where that bead comes from.
Oh,
wow.
It's so much fun to do them. Yeah. Well, for other people, they don't mean more than what the composition is. But in doing them, I find a lot of um, it's really nice to do them for me.
Nice.
Yeah. And I met so many people that say like Jill is saying, I have this rock, I have this coral that, and I don't know what to do with it. And you know, you can make it into some sort of art and have it somewhere. You know,
This could almost be a necklace, actually.
Yeah.
I could wire it and
Yeah.
because it's small enough. And it's really it's nice and soft and worn. It's been
And you
tumbled.
know, I'm using what the technique that is used for stained glass. You know, the same technique. So you can instead of wiring, which becomes kind of a messy thing,
Yeah.
you make this kind of very subtle holding piece.
Oh, right. Just like a setting kind of.
Right. It's kind of a setting, but it's so, you know, you don't need much to hold a stone that is not so heavy.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
That's my passion right now. My addiction.
It sounds like fun. It's something I could get into, but I'm into too many things, so I'll just save that for later.
Yeah. 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 Well, we haven't seen Justin's.
Oh, yeah.
Why don't we go through that 18 seconds? Okay.
Well, you can read that. I'm just saying that. Let me see here.
I find inspiration from nature in the veins of a leaf to the brilliant literary treasure.
Okay, everyone. So before we go, and then everyone works on the intent statement, i.e. the why, does anyone have any questions, or is everyone doing okay? Any problems, difficulties?
Oh, and by the way, when you come back in, you're automatically muted. So sorry about
Right.
that. You have
Oh,
to
no problem.
mute yourself.
But yeah, you can unmute yourself if you want. Anyone? Everyone's good?
We struggled a little bit in our group to put our inspiration into words. So it's a work in progress.
Yeah. And again, it will be, but I wanted everyone to at least get a good start tonight. And then, of course, like I said, afterwards, you can always go back and tweak it yourself, of course. Or talk to one another about it. It's always good to get feedback from one another too. I think getting peer feedback is great. Okay, so we'll go out for another 15 minutes. I'm going to jump into, I think, group 3, right, Ed? And then, or 4?
I think 4.
Okay, and Ed's going to jump into group 3.
Okay, Eva, I have a question.
Sure.
So the final product here would be about how long?
Again, for tonight, it's just going to be maybe even 1 paragraph or 2 paragraphs, depending. I mean, again, if some of you have 3 sentences or 3 or 4 sentences that you already kind of know you want to plop into one of these sections, then, you may have 3 paragraphs. But generally, a paragraph should be 3 to 4 sentences long. Generally, like I said, what's important tonight is think about just using clear terms, descriptive terms, explaining what you mean pretty clearly so that your audience doesn't have questions. But it's a very personal thing. So if you only want 1 sentence for technique, go for it. Whatever you feel like, I kind of feel like it's an artistic creation, meaning you have to know when to stop, right? That's kind of the creativity part. You have to know when it's done. When does it say that you've said enough, but you haven't said too much?
I've always had trouble with that. Knowing when to stop.
Okay, are we good? Very good. So again, it's a work in progress. It's a creative work, just like your artwork. Think about it that way.
There was one question about if we're all typing in the main document, then people should copy their stuff out, or will you send the document out, or how will this work? Or they can link to the same document later on after the meeting?
They can link to it, or once we're done tonight and we do the reflection in the groups, certainly before you leave tonight, you can also just copy and paste your stuff into a separate doc if you want. Or I can, Ed can send out a link. I can give Ed the link and he can send it out. However you want to do it, I'm fine.
Okay, great.
Also, some people don't know how to use Google Docs, so it might be helpful to send it to people in some form.
Okay, why don't we take about maybe 10 minutes for intent, just because, which is fine. I don't mind, chatting, but I just want to keep us on schedule. So if you need longer, you can let us know, but otherwise let's take about 10 minutes and do intent now. Okay, so group 3. So under step 2, just type group 3, I guess, right?
Oh yeah, there we are. I'm writing mine on the fly, so, oh, there's Mariana's, okay. She's so quiet over there. What is our thing here? Why do I create my artwork?
Mm-hmm.
Boy, I wish I knew.
Well, that's a funny thing, right? When I was working in the gallery, I mean, I used to be art history, right? And both my parents were artists. So for me, I was like, why are people making up like why Monet did what he did? It's so bogus when sometimes the artists don't even understand why.
So I just put because I like it when people compliment me.
Yes.
So for ego purposes.
No, actually, I mean, that is true, but that's not my actual intent.
Think about the audience. I mean, is there a reason?
Yes.
I mean, is there something you want the audience to take from your art? Maybe.
This sounds so egotistical, but I'm just gonna put it down here.
Go for it. I mean, again, there's no right or wrong. Or you're giving your audience an insight into your personality. Yeah.
Well, it's all Jill all the time.
Well, there you go.
Justin, in the meantime, while Jill thinks and writes, where it says the great power of art is realized in its potential to whisper to us. The word realize, I understand what you're trying to say, and I really like what you wrote. But the word realize,
It's kind of vague, isn't it?
yeah, it makes it hard to, it took me a while to understand what, that word was confusing for me.
Yes, thank you. I think you're right. Maybe there's something better. Maybe the power of art is maybe I just take that out altogether. The power of art is its potential to whisper to
Right,
us.
yeah, maybe that would be better. Yeah.
I think I could just take that out altogether. It makes it, it's not a very actively worded sentence with that word realized in it.
Yeah, what if you say the power of art is its potential? It's like the force. I don't know what word would be good that
Maybe
whispers to
Jill,
us.
Yep, I'm right there. I was on a, okay, now what?
you see down there, Jill, in mine there where it says the great power of art is realized. Yeah, just take the word realized out and is in its potential to there. Maybe that's better. I think that's even better. Realized was not an active way to say it. This is more active.
Yeah.
And I would just take out in too, because it's always good to get rid of non-essential words.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're mixing two mediums here. And you're also, the mediums are important, but that almost could belong under techniques.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Really think about the why here, why you create any of your artwork, not necessarily medium specific. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So, I mean, part of that could be moved under technique if you want to copy and paste it under. That's what I've been telling people. I mean, we're breaking them out, but I think it's important to really understand what you're talking about where for your audience. If that makes sense.
There we go. Moved it down there. All right.
But I would leave that line that you left. I think.
I mean, that's fine. But again, why do you believe you have a unique view of the world?
Yeah, I was trying to
elaborate. Why is that
on
important to your audience? And I will say, and maybe it's just me, but I'm sure maybe you also know it, the words interesting and unique. I always tease my boyfriend because I'm like, those were two words that in the art world, we just tried to avoid. Unique because we all are. And interesting because, as we know, that's kind of like what you say when you don't have anything positive to say about someone's artwork.
That's interesting.
However, there's a good definition, I think, of the word interesting that's kind of an alternate. And that is, what is interesting is what is surprising and what is
it's better to use the word surprising then.
Yeah.
I mean, don't you feel like, I mean, for me, interesting always had a negative connotation.
It's almost like you just couldn't find a better word.
Right.
I said colorful.
That's great. Especially if that, again, gives it more of an insight into your artwork too. If you would think your artwork is colorful, then that kind of aligns with your view of the world, right?
Yes, yes, and it is very colorful.
And you also said you have a sense of humor, or you like to kind of be a clown. So do you feel like that also plays into your artwork, that it's more playful, less serious?
It is very playful. Yes.
So do you want the audience to kind of, feel lighthearted, or, feel some sense of enjoyment, or, do you know what I'm saying? Is your intent to kind of be?
I think light-hearted is a good word.
Mm-hmm. And then Mariana, I'm just curious. I think there's a lot of good there. You could probably break it up into a couple of sentences though, because when I'm interested in exploring the fourth dimension, I'm going, what does she mean by that? So you might want to just have that be a sentence and then have the second part be a second sentence.
Yeah. Okay.
Are you a sculptor?
Yeah, but because I do mobiles, they kind of move. That's why I'm talking about the fourth dimension.
Would we say I create living structures?
Yeah.
Are they living though?
They're mobiles.
They're moving.
I would say moving, or I would look at synonyms for moving.
Or active.
Active, right?
Active. The active, that would, oh yeah. More than moving, I would say active.
There you go.
Let's see.
The change over time.
Yeah, that gives me a better sense of what you do.
Yeah.
Oops. What's going on?
Kind of like Calder, or are they Calder-like, or?
Right, but they're with pieces that I find in nature or things that I collect. It's more organic than metal, let's say.
So you could, you could include part of that into your technique, but it could also be inspiration, or I'm sorry, your intent. Sorry.
Yeah.
So why use organic things versus metal or something? Why do you feel like you want to collect natural items?
Right. Well, in the inspiration, I'm saying that I collect things and I like using them. But I can, I can rephrase that.
But I like that they are perfectly balanced, dancing to the slightest breeze, ever changing. That's very nice.
Great. Thank you.
Is that passive?
No.
Okay.
Active is subject, verb, object.
Okay.
Passive is object, verb, subject. So generally, if you have a clause, like he went to the store to get some milk, that's active. Going to the store, he decided to pick up some milk, is passive.
Okay.
Because there should be a comma after that introductory clause.
Gotcha.
Passive tend to have introductory clauses. And once in a while, that's fine. But if you're writing a really brief artist statement, you can lose your audience if you use too many of them. So any other? Now, Justin, the only thing, I understand what you're saying, and I think R is fine for part of that. Would you want to entertain putting my in your first sentence?
Oh, sure. Sure. To make it more personal, or just direct it from myself to others?
Right. Well, I mean, because I don't know if you're in your artist statement, if you want to be speaking for everyone. I mean, I understand later that's fine to say,
okay.
But like artistic, expression is a way of responding to life, my experience, and search for meaning and purpose. Do you see how that's kind of more powerful?
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah.
And then the last part is, I think, okay to say us, because then you're kind of saying it's for the audience and for me. Like someone
Okay.
can imply that the us is the person who's viewing your work and you. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
So is it my experience then? Is that what we're saying?
Yeah.
Again, yeah.
And then down here, we're living in the us.
Yeah, I think that's fine because you can see where then you're talking about a communication between you and your audience or the person
Gotcha.
who's viewing your work. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yes, it does.
I think in the opening one too, it was a little bit like that as well.
There it is.
No, it's all good. Never mind.
Do you want to start working on technique since we?
Yeah.
Are you all happy with what you have for that?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, you can jump down to technique. There's no reason you can't work ahead a little.
Oh yeah, there we go.
We want to.
Yeah. So often when I do paint in like pretty much every medium available, and I do mixed media, I do photography, I do everything. I mean, so, a lot of times when I'm in a show and I'm entering like 3 paintings, I will often enter a photograph, a pastel, and an oil painting because I paint in whatever, suits my fancy that day. So that's why it's been so hard to like come up with something that kind of describes it all, because the paintings are so different depending upon the medium. So, yeah.
I mean, do you feel like the inspiration and intent could talk about all of them, and then maybe what you want to do, because like I said, it's such an artist statement is so individual, right? So maybe what you want to do is spend more time on the technique section and maybe have, maybe 3 sections and just a few descriptors, like 2 or 3 sentences for each medium.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Thank you.
You're welcome. Remember, your statement just can reflect the artwork, and especially the artwork that's on the wall that your audience will be looking at.
Okay.
Or that's on the ground or wherever it is.
In the booth. Yeah, a lot of times we put these artist statements in binders that sit at the show. So, we have our show up and then we have like a binder that has our statements in it. So it's kind of,
I know, for me, the reason I ask artists to create them is, especially when someone's buying the art, that's when they really want the artist statement.
Yeah, that makes sense.
They really like to have that along with, both to have the bio there, but the statement and the bio together, I think is really nice for people to have. So, let's leave the breakout room and then good luck.
Okay.
So why don't we have 10 minutes of technique, and then we'll come back out and then we'll do the reflection, and then everyone can jump in for 10 minutes of reflection with their group members. How's that?
What I want to say is that the technique is whatever I need from, from the tools I have through my life.
There you go.
I learned so many different things. So.
Something like this.
Yeah.
Maybe?
Yeah, the technique I need to grain my pieces independent. Yeah. Yeah, I would take that out because it doesn't say much.
Oh, we have to leave our breakout room already?
That was fast.
Well, I have to say I found the technique much easier than intent.
Yeah, me too.
Well, one thing that somebody had a good question in terms of the difference between inspiration and intent. And again, like I said, it's a very individual thing, and I'm kind of pulling these out so that you can think about them individually. But inspiration is more an internal, like what inspires you personally. Intent is more what's the external response that you would like from it.
Okay.
So why are you putting out into the world? Why, what is it you want? And I think one of the participants just said attention. She's always looking for attention. Okay, so the last thing, just go back, however you want to wrap things up with your group members tonight. You can give each other feedback on what you've written if you haven't already. And then just think about maybe how can you use your artist statement? Do you want to use it in your next show? Do you want to put it on your website? Do you want to just have it kind of as an elevator pitch when someone's asking you on the spot at an exhibit? Now you have something to say. Just think about different ways you can do it. And then, well, you're welcome to just chat. Do you want to just open it up and whoever wants to unmute and kind of just, chat about maybe what you found to be helpful, kind of, what you liked about creating the statement, any questions you have, and then how you might use it. Shall we go around? And again, you don't have to. If you want to pass, you can tell Ed you just want to pass and we'll let the next person. Shall we do that? Or do you want to just speak up kind of randomly? How do we want to do this?
Why don't we just let folks speak up? I don't know
Okay.
how I feel about that, but anybody
Okay, go for it.
want to be a spokesperson?
I would like to say how I was kind of surprised how different our statements are. Very, very unique. I mean, without knowing exactly, without knowing much of what Jill or Justin, I mean, I've seen things they do, but I don't know much of their work. And I was very surprised how totally different three people we are.
I think that's part of the beauty of being artists, though, is our is our unexpected and the surprising kind of approaches to things. Even how we think and how we operate and how we approach art. It's all so, to me, it's fascinating.
Totally.
For our group, I actually had the most fun just getting to know Gail and Jean. I was like, yay! So that was super awesome. And I think it helped us at least to take the pressure off to just kind of spitball ideas and maybe not try to make complete sentences and perfectly polished paragraphs and just kind of like, I don't know, barf on paper. But then put it all together. And surprisingly, when we took that pressure off, I don't know if the ladies realized it, but they said the most elegant things all the time. Like as soon as it was like, oh, just, spitball some ideas. And the stuff that came out was like gold. It was just, I can't type fast enough. So it was really awesome.
Thanks. That's nice. Well, I would just say that I really appreciate this structure that you've provided tonight, because as I had mentioned in the beginning, I've written quite a number of artist statements and I just sort of dive in and, who knows? And this I thought was extremely helpful in terms of, okay, here's a good structure to use to start out to fine tune a product. So I thought it's great and I thank you very much.
Yeah, I got to echo Jean's sentiment on that. I realized I really had only one of my three kind of elements because it wasn't structured. And so that was really an eye opener.
Yes, thank you so much. This is the first time that I've attended something with Boulder Art Association. So I appreciate the benefit of gaining some knowledge. Thank you.
All the work you've put into making this happen.
Oh, thanks. Actually, I just want to say we've got several board members on the meeting today. So Hannah's a board member and Annie and Jill is also a board member and Justin is a board member. So these folks do a huge amount of work for the Boulder Art Association to keep it going and make all these things happen. So thanks, guys.
Ed is also a board member. He didn't mention himself.
I know. I was like, he's kind of leaving himself out.
So Eva, I have a question for you. I did, go out and look at your website, and I saw the outline for tonight's meeting. Do you have information on your website as to how to write an artist statement that we can go back and look at and maybe get some more ideas from?
Sure, I have the samples. So, you're welcome to go out to that page, and there's the links to the samples that I provided.
Okay.
And if you have any questions, if you looked at that PDF/PowerPoint slide, I mean, you're welcome to contact me too at eva@theatrecourage.com. So you're certainly welcome to, send me a sample statement if you want, or, whatever you're working on, and I'll be glad to, provide some feedback.
Great. Well, thank you. I think that'd be helpful for some of us.
Could you put that email in the chat?
Sure.
So we.
And Eva, you also do consulting, so folks can work with you if they want some assistance, right?
Certainly.
Any other questions or comments from anyone? I just want to say, I was really having trouble writing some stuff, so I showed my painting to the group that I was in, and they started coming up with all these words that were really helpful. So maybe that's another technique that people could do, is just get feedback from other people who see your art and just have them throw out words that you can use that will, because that, especially with that intent part, I think, because you really will get some good feedback about how your art is, affecting other people.
Cool.
Yeah, I would definitely suggest, working with, like I said, I think peer feedback is great. And I saw that happening in a lot of groups, helping each other tweak your statements and what you might mean, or, because again, I think having a different set of eyes, what you think is coming across might not be how it's being interpreted by other people. So
when you're in the document, you go up to File up here, and you go make a copy. And then you don't say share it, and it just puts it in your, if you have Google Docs, and it just puts it in your drive.
Cool.
And it creates a new copy. And then if you want, oops, that's my artist statement. Where did it go? I have too many things over. And if you want to like, export this document, you just go up to File, and then you download, and then you can download it into any of these formats. So you can use it on your computer.
And then, like Hannah said, they could also do a cut and paste.
And you can also do a Command All copy paste thing. But
I was the less tech savvy version of the world.
It's quick, it's dirty, it gets it done.
Yeah.
Anyway, I hope that's helpful to you guys.
Yeah, thanks, Jill. All right, well, I think that's all for today. I'm just gonna show you guys a reminder again about the meeting next month in February 10th, Randy Hale. His meetings always are extremely popular, so we expect a lot of people to attend this one. He's a great artist, has a huge following, and I think a lot of stuff to learn from him. So please join us for that event, and thanks everybody for joining us tonight. And thanks so much, Eve. I really appreciate the presentation today and the work, and I think everybody really got a lot out of it. So thanks a lot.
Yes, thank you.
And I was going to say, check out Eve's website, and you can also subscribe to her newsletter, and she has a bunch of other great resources on her website. So it's feartocourage.com, right, Eve?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks, guys, and we'll see you next month, hopefully, and maybe on Saturday at the art critique. Please join us for the critique as well. They're a lot of fun. Take care.
All right. Thanks,
Good night.
everybody.
Thanks.